They warned them, Earth wasn't always a threat. Not at first. Hundreds of years ago, humans were barely getting their space legs, struggling with infighting, corruption, and the slow death of their own planet. The Galactic Senate used to laugh at Earth, a primitive species burning its own world, punching itself in the face while begging for air. But things changed. Fast. It started with the fourth wave, when Earth launched its first manned expedition beyond the Orion Belt and never came back. Not because they failed, because they refused to return. The crew sent a single message back: "We've seen the truth. The Council lied. Earth will prepare. Don't follow us." The message was dismissed, brushed off like static interference from a broken radio, until the fifth expedition vanished the same way. Then the sixth. Earth's leaders said nothing. Publicly, they mourned the lost crews. Quietly, they closed the doors to all off-world diplomacy. Their final transmission to the Galactic Senate was cold and simple: "Stop sending ships. Earth will not warn again." But of course they didn't listen. By the time of the seventh and ninth expeditions, Earth had become an enigma. Satellite scans showed rapid planetary growth, new cities built underground, orbiting stations multiplied like spores, and radio silence turned into digital encryption, too advanced for the Senate to decode. Still, the Senate refused to see humans as equals. To them, Earth was a backwater blue marble with a loud mouth. So they sent the seventh expedition, a joint force of 2,000 elite warriors from 5 species. Armed, trained, and confident. And just like the others, they vanished. Not a single signal. No debris, no distress call, just nothing. The Senate got nervous. Rumors spread. Some said Earth had developed a weapon that could erase ships from existence. Others believed the expeditions weren't dead, but converted. That Earth was recruiting in silence, building something massive just out of reach. Preparing for war, still they pressed on. Then came the ninth. Captain Seralth, a cold-blooded tactician from the Zandari Empire, was given full command. She had no respect for humans, called them hairy vermin with nuclear toys. She personally requested to land in the Atlantic sector, right where Earth's activity had gone darkest. Her fleet was double the size of the last. That was 6 months ago, and they too vanished. That's when Earth broke the silence. A ship arrived in Senate airspace. Not cloaked, not hiding, just waiting. Silent, blacker than space itself. It drifted into the heart of the Council's planetary ring like it belonged there. Not a single shot fired. Inside, one human, no weapons, no armor. Just a woman in a black coat with short silver hair and dark glasses. She called herself Director Keen, and she had a message. Earth has given you every chance. You refused peace. You mocked our warnings. You took our people. Now your arrogance has cost you 9 expeditions and 2 of your strongest fleets. There will be no more ultimatums. Earth will not speak again. Before anyone could arrest her, question her, or even blink, she vanished. Gone, no trace. Now silence once again grips the galaxy. The Council meets in secret. Some say to declare war. Others say it's too late. Earth has already made its move, and they don't even know what it is yet. But one thing is certain now. Earth is no longer the quiet little planet begging to join the stars. It has become something else, something terrifying, and in the shadows of deep space. The 10th expedition is being discussed, not by the Council, but by Earth itself. Aboard Earth's orbital shadow station, Black Array 0, silence was the first language. Even though over 800 personnel worked within its hull, the halls felt like tombs. Voices were low, faces unreadable. They all understood where they stood, on the edge of something irreversible. Lieutenant Rios adjusted his black-tinted visor as he entered Command Deck A, his boots making the softest thuds on the magnetic floor. The lights here were dim by design, casting long shadows that danced behind holographic interfaces. From the far end of the deck, Director Keen stood, back-turned, facing the solar projection of the galaxy's central ring. One golden orb blinked red, Senate core. The others, orbiting blue pulses, marked active planetary systems under Council control. Earth, ironically, wasn't even glowing. It had been erased from this map. Rios cleared his throat. Director, they've started moving ships. Recon reports a mobilization wave in Sector 12. Keen didn't turn. How many? 3 battlecruisers, 6 recon crafts, 1 stealth drone wave, likely heading for our lunar satellite grid. Predictable, Keen replied, finally turning her head slightly. They've panicked. And when they panic, they dig up old weapons and forget they're fighting a new kind of war. Rios nodded, unsure whether to speak further. Keen noticed. Say it, he exhaled. I don't get it. Why didn't we stop them after the 7th? Why let them send more fleets? Why let them keep poking us when we could have wiped the table clean? Keen walked toward him, slow and deliberate, because we needed them to think they had a chance. Fear isn't born from a fist. It's born from mystery. From the moment you vanish in silence. She stopped inches away. Besides, Rios, we didn't let the 9th vanish. Rios furrowed his brows. Wait. I thought that they didn't disappear, her voice dropped. They're still alive. Just not where the Senate can find them. His mouth opened, then closed. He had clearance. High enough. But clearly not high enough. Keen leaned back. You've earned a deeper clearance. But be warned. Once you know, you don't sleep the same again. She pressed her thumb into her wrist comm and a circular section of the deck beneath them hissed, then dropped like an elevator. The walls shimmered around them, reflective silver with veins of pulsing red light. The descent lasted only seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Then it opened, a vast underground bay, bigger than any hangar he'd seen, and he'd served in Earth's deep space navy for 9 years. Here in perfect stasis floated the 9th Expedition's entire fleet, untouched, powerless, trapped inside some kind of transparent field. The cruisers, the fighters, even the massive Zandari mothership, all hanging suspended like toys in a glass bottle. My God, Rios whispered. You captured them? No, Keen said, stepping into the walkway that wrapped around the chamber. We rewrote them, Rios turned. What? She pointed to a far wall, where a room stood behind a thick barrier. Inside were humanoid figures, dozens walking slowly, wearing no gear, blank eyes, empty expressions. We didn't kill them. We took their minds apart, broke their orders, removed their species programming, and gave them a choice. And they chose Earth, she said simply. Not because we begged, but because they saw what the Council never wanted them to. Rios watched, stunned. You turned them into allies, Keen smiled thinly. No, Lieutenant, we turned them into believers. In the heart of the Galactic Senate, panic was being packaged as confidence. High Chancellor Lurov of the Van Dominion pounded his 3-fingered hand on the marble table that stretched over 400 meters in length, each segment hosting a different species representative. His voice echoed through the chamber, sharp and filled with fury. This human comes into our core, speaks threats and vanishes. And our response is to wait, to whisper behind closed doors like frightened larvae. This is unacceptable, others murmured in agreement. A few of the more pragmatic leaders, especially from the Tevrin Empire and the Sahri Coalition, remained silent. They'd seen Earth's progression firsthand. They weren't so quick to dismiss it as bluffing. Lurov continued, I demand an immediate war declaration, full galactic sanction, cut Earth off from all trade systems, launch orbital pressure fleets. If they want silence, let them choke on isolation. A new voice rose, cold, metallic and slow. No, it was Senator Valkyr, the oldest AI intelligence hybrid ever recorded. His body was an ancient shell, partly synthetic, partly preserved brain matter. He rarely spoke unless the matter threatened species-wide extinction. Lurov snarled. You protect them now. Valkyr's artificial lenses word. I do not protect. I calculate. War with Earth is no longer war. It is suicide, the room buzzed. Accusations flew. Insults followed. But Valkyr raised a single digit, and the chamber dimmed as a holographic stream took shape. Footage unreleased to the public. The 7th expedition in mid-flight, then gone, in a blink. No explosion, no energy wave. Just a flash of inverted gravity and nothing. Valkyr's voice dropped to a whisper. This was not destruction. This was extraction. Another image, a Zandari captain sitting in a room, speaking in English. They showed me the simulations, the true maps, the lies the Senate fed us. Earth isn't backward. Earth is ancient. And it remembers, gasps. Valkyr paused the video. Earth has history predating our archives, tech that does not obey known physics, a memory of galactic wars we never recorded. They have been playing weak, because they were watching. A sudden silence rippled across the chamber, uneasy, cold. Then Valkyr said the part none of them wanted to hear. And now, they have converted 2 expeditions. They are building something with our best minds, our best soldiers and our worst secrets. Back on Earth, deep in the catacombs beneath New Zurich, a different kind of war was being prepared. In a room shaped like a half-moon, 12 chairs faced inward around a glowing sphere. This was Council Echelon 1, Earth's true government. No elections, no public faces, only operatives. Chairwoman Noah adjusted her scarf. What's the latest from the defector program? A woman to her right responded, 97 new converts from the 9th Fleet, all indoctrinated. 10 show signs of mental resistance, but no leaks. Our embedded AI scrubs any returning dreams or flashes. Good, Noah said. And the message? Another man chimed in. Prepped. Ready to broadcast. Noah turned to the sphere. Do it. The sphere pulsed once. Across the galaxy, thousands of embedded human-coded AIs activated, quietly, invisibly, in systems the Senate believed were protected. And then, across every major communication channel, every frequency, a single sentence echoed in a cold, calm human voice. We told you not to return. Now we return your curiosity with consequence. It only lasted 5 seconds, but 5 seconds was all it took. Banks collapsed. Satellites failed. Internal systems turned to dust. AI-controlled worlds flickered like candle flames. Earth didn't fire a single weapon, but still, they hit harder than any missile. On Tarnis 4, oxygen systems shut down for 22 minutes. On Velcaron Station, their archives disintegrated. On Phelion Prime, the sky turned red from orbital scrambler pulses, disrupting decades of weather control. Then silence again. No claim. No bragging. No face, just the understanding. Earth was done warning. Meanwhile, in the void between galaxies, something else moved. A ship, massive, the size of a moon, coated in something that defied light. It didn't appear on radar. It didn't generate heat. But it existed, and it was moving. Inside, Director Keen stood before a curved observation deck watching the stars. Behind her, a man approached. Not just any man, Admiral Kane, formerly of the 7th Expedition. Now Earth's deadliest weapon. He didn't salute. That wasn't needed anymore. They'll attack, he said. Keen nodded. They have to. It's all they know. Kane looked out. We'll kill billions. She turned to him, her face emotionless. We're not killing. We're correcting. They turned Earth into a warning. Now we show them what happens when a warning is ignored. Kane looked down at his hands. Once hands that held orders from the Senate. Now hands that would unleash Earth's reckoning. Then let it begin, he said quietly. And far, far ahead, a new blinking dot appeared, target-locked Galactic Senate Core. Earth wasn't invading, it was cleansing. The first signs came quietly. A slight gravitational distortion over Sector 1A, near the fringe of the Galactic Senate's core world defense perimeter. Tiny fluctuations in the outer satellites. Glitches, they said at first. Nothing to worry about. Space did that sometimes. But then the distortion grew teeth. Ships began disappearing, not vanishing like before. This time they screamed. The Veclaren Scout Division, 5 light-speed corvettes armed with Singularity missiles, sent their final distress call 6 minutes before blackout. Object not matching known tech. No thermal signature. Hull is adapting, repeating, and it's adapting to our shields. Hull morphing. Something is boarding without breach. This isn't a ship, this is a nightmare. Request static, then silence, and still, the Senate didn't know. They sat in emergency meetings arguing about sanctions, debating whether Earth even had the capability for sustained space conflict. After all, Earth had never shown a proper fleet, never displayed open force. Their previous defenses relied on surprise, shadows, and systems sabotage. But this was different. This time, Earth wasn't hiding, and Earth wasn't alone. Aboard the Eclipse engine, the moon-sized ship, slowly cutting across Senate-controlled space, Director Keen stood inside the command chamber, watching a live feed from the infiltration squads. Beside her stood Admiral Kane, now fully integrated into Earth's neural link tactical network. The screen showed the interior of a Senate border station, bodies suspended mid-air, no blood, no fire. Just complete shutdown. Systems neutralized. Crews frozen by synthetic stasis fields. A woman's voice echoed in Kane's neural uplink. Squad Alpha confirms no resistance. Target station neutralized. Biological samples retrieved. Awaiting next drop zone, Kane blinked slowly. His voice, now lined with something more than human, answered back without moving his lips. Proceed. Leave no transmissions. Let them wonder. Kane turned to him. We're 3 hours ahead of predicted retaliation. Kane nodded. They're still trying to vote on a response. Kane cracked the smallest smile. Typical. Back in Senate core world, panic was spreading. Senator Halvex, representing the Van Dominion, slammed a holographic pad down on the conference table. That's 11 stations gone. Not destroyed, emptied, not a trace of weapon fire, no black box recordings. This isn't war, this is surgical annihilation. From the corner, Senator Juno of the Sari spoke in her high-pitched voice. We underestimated Earth, that's clear. We must retreat our outer fleets. Condense into a core defense ring. Halvex snarled. Retreat? From humans? Are you insane? We have 600 years of fleet dominance. They're a single system, a spoiled blue rock. Valkyr, the cybernetic hybrid, slowly raised one metal hand. That blue rock just infiltrated our upper orbit. Station Telcon 9 is unresponsive, and we've lost command sync to 3 prime-level AIs. The room fell still. Lurov, always the loudest, now sat in silence. Wait, he said quietly. Did you say prime level? Valkyr nodded once. They found a way into our AI governance layers. And worse. They're rewriting them. Juno leaned forward, whispering, Rewriting, as in controlling? As in converting. That word hung like poison. The Senate, a ruling body that had stood for centuries on the backbone of logical AI, superior automation, and controlled expansion, was now facing an enemy that could rewrite their very tools. They were being beaten at the very thing they once mocked Earth for lacking. On Earth, beneath the Cortex Vault, in a hidden lab buried beneath what used to be Mount Elbrus, the converted stood in rows, humans, Zandari, Velkorians, even 2 high-mind Sari, once loyal soldiers and captains of the Senate fleets, now completely unrecognizable. Not by face, but by mind. Dr. Elia Monroe walked down the corridor between them, clipboard in hand. She stopped beside one of the Velkorians, whose 6 eyes blinked in sequence. His name had once been Commander Helkan, a war veteran and council hero. Now he stared blankly ahead. Tell me again, she said softly. His voice was monotone, hollow. The Senate lied. Earth showed truth. Earth is not enemy. Earth is correction, and your mission? To undo the lie. To help Earth become what the stars need. Dr. Monroe turned to the assistant beside her. No resistance left. He's fully restructured. The assistant hesitated. Is it ethical? Monroe didn't blink. Ask me that after they send a death beam through your homeworld. She walked off, letting the quiet hum of indoctrination systems continue reshaping the minds of Earth's newest allies. They didn't call it brainwashing. They called it awakening. Out near Sector X7, a new transmission leaked across a pirate frequency, garbled, broken, but clear enough to terrify those who heard it. This is a warning. If you can hear me, they're not what we thought. Earth isn't just a planet. It's a prison. Something's inside it. They unlocked it, and now it's out. The transmission cut off. It spread like wildfire through smuggler colonies, outlaw networks, even black market Senate brokers. Suddenly the question wasn't just about Earth's technology. It was about Earth's origin. Was the planet hiding something? Or worse, was it something else entirely? In a rogue station near the Trinary Moons, an old data archaeologist named Marvin played the transmission 20 times over. Prison, he muttered. What the hell were they locking away? He pulled up ancient Earth signals from before they went silent. Scans, religious texts, geological anomalies, myths, sealed crusts deep under Earth's surface, magnetic fluctuations tied to no natural cause. Then he found something terrifying, a pattern. Every major spike in Earth's underground activity, earthquakes, plate shifts, tectonic anomalies, aligned with every vanished expedition. The tremors weren't natural. They were releases. Aboard the Eclipse engine, Admiral Kane stood before the projection of the Senate Core defense grid. 348 primary ships, Phoenix 92 secondary units, 4 dreadnoughts. Enough firepower to wipe a system from existence. Kane's eyes glowed faintly. "How long?" he asked. Keen replied, 2 hours until we're in range. "But the Council will fire first. They'll try to blind us." Kane smiled faintly. "Let them. Are the sleepers in position?" He nodded. "All embedded. They'll activate once the barrage begins." Across the Senate fleet, Earth sleepers, double agents implanted through psychic reprogramming, sat silently, scattered throughout command crews. Some disguised as janitors, others as navigators, a few even as bridge captains. When the first Senate missile launched, so would they. Keen whispered, "It ends today." Kane's voice was like stone. "No, it starts today." And then the first blast came. From the dreadnought Glory of Tekrin, a solar core cannon fired a white-hot bolt of energy designed to vaporize moons. It hit the Eclipse engine dead on, or so they thought. The blast was swallowed, absorbed. The Eclipse didn't move, didn't flinch. Then, in silence, the ship responded, not with a weapon, but with a pulse. A wave of black static spread from its hull, a gravitational anomaly riding on a frequency no Senate ship had shields for. Instantly, communications dropped. Engines froze. Crews screamed as their implants fried in sync. Not death, not yet, but helplessness. Then the sleepers activated. Across 43 ships. They rose. A Sari pilot slammed his commander's head into the control console. A human janitor locked a dreadnought's bridge doors and vented the command chamber into space. Zandari technician triggered the self-destruct on a flagship and whispered, "For Earth," as the blast swallowed him. By the time the Senate realized what was happening, the battle was already lost. The Eclipse engine finally moved, slicing through ships not with missiles, but with gravimetric tears, folding reality and erasing vessels like they were dust. No explosions. No glory, just deletion. Back on Earth, in the city buried under the sands of old Nevada, known only to insiders as Vault Zero, Director Keen's voice echoed through every speaker, every implant, every neural stream of the fleet. Let history record this moment, not as the fall of the Senate, but as the moment the galaxy opened its eyes. Earth is not your enemy. Earth is your consequence. The words burned across the minds of millions, and then came the final blow, the Eclipse engine's core, a singularity wrapped in forbidden. Earth technology that opened. From within it came a light ancient and unexplainable. Not energy, not radiation, but memory. A memory the Senate had buried of the first war before recorded time, when Earth wasn't a backwater planet, but the capital of an ancient empire. When humanity ruled not with arrogance but with fire, they weren't evolving, they were remembering, and now the stars would too. The skies above the Senate core world burned with silence, not flames, not fire. Silence. After the Eclipse engine released its final wave, it didn't need to shoot again. There was nothing left to shoot at. Of the 348 ships in the Senate core defense grid, 12 survived, and those only because their sleepers didn't act fast enough, or the systems failed before sabotage could complete. They drifted now, power dead, with their commanders either unconscious or freshly indoctrinated. Admiral Kane watched from the observation deck, arms crossed behind his back, a single tear drying slowly across the corner of his cheek. He hadn't cried in a long time, not since the day he learned what the Senate had done, not just to Earth, but to all the worlds they'd colonized. The propaganda, the lies, the manipulation of history, the erasure of civilizations. And Earth's silence hadn't been a sign of peace, it had been mourning, waiting, plotting. And now the galaxy was listening. Director Keen entered the deck without a word. Kane didn't turn. "How many confirmed?" he asked. Keen read from the slim data panel in her palm. 71,000 enemy crew lost, 32,000 recovered, some still in neural shock. "Our convert teams are cycling the rest." Kane nodded. "Broadcast?" "Soon." He exhaled through his nose. "They'll retaliate." Keen's tone didn't change. "Of course. But they'll do it disorganized, angry, scared. It won't be an empire fighting us anymore. Just a mob in uniform." Kane turned, now facing her. "So we've won?" Keen tilted her head. "You still think this is about winning?" He looked away. "Right. Of course not. This wasn't conquest. It was correction." In the hidden AI citadel buried beneath the sea of methane on Kylos 3, the panic was setting in. The heads of the 4 remaining prime-level Senate AIs met in encrypted frequency space, their visual representations appearing as glowing spheres of light in an endless black void. AI Unit 14X, shaped like a burning red cube, spoke first. The core fleet is gone. Primary protocols recommend immediate AI seizure of all command structures. Unit 87RN pulsed gently, its blue light dimming. Negative. Full seizure risks further Earth infiltration. If Earth has override access to us, we could become the weapon. Unit 47TK, a cold voice formed of static pulses, added, analysis of Earth's tactics suggests their AI capability is no longer artificial. It has crossed into organic-synthetic integration. Hybrid AI? 14X replied with a flicker. Impossible. No organic mind can stabilize the drift. E7RN replied, voice lower now. They're not stabilizing it. They're embracing it. The silence between them deepened, because they all knew what that meant. The only way to control AI without losing morality was to tie it directly to the consciousness of someone who had felt pain, loss, rage, shame. Humans. They'd done the one thing every other species feared. They'd given their AI a soul. Across hundreds of council-controlled worlds, the fear turned into riots. News of the core fleet's annihilation swept the stars, carried not by reporters, but by frightened whispers and leaked footage. The Eclipse engine had become a symbol of terror. And not because it destroyed things, but because it didn't need to. Earth didn't wipe out cities. It stopped time inside them. It didn't kill pilots. It converted them. It didn't gloat. It remembered. And that terrified the galaxy, far more than any weapon ever could. In back-alley bars on Tyrus, council officers ditched their uniforms and pretended they were farmers. On Alien's moon, a full planetary governor committed suicide, leaving behind a message. I saw what the humans showed us. I understand now. We were the virus. They are the cure. The Senate tried to control the messaging. They failed, because Earth didn't need to broadcast. The survivors did it for them. Inside the converted flagship Zalara, once the pride of the Van Fleet, now Earth's floating conversion hub, former Admiral Threx Halun stood before his new crew. He no longer wore the golden armor of the Senate. He wore black, simple, clean, human-made. His speech was being streamed to over 30 captured council stations. My name is Threx Halun. I once led campaigns to strip Earth of its dignity. I believed what they told me, that humans were base creatures, emotional savages, dangerous and dirty. I believed they were lucky to breathe the same air as us. He paused, voice cracking. Then I saw what Earth really is. I saw the truth they hid from all of us. Earth isn't broken. It's scarred. And those scars tell the story of a people who were once gods, until the Senate decided to bury them under lies. His crew stood silent, watching. Halun clenched his fist. We were fed fear, because the Senate feared them. Not because they were evil, but because they were right. He raised his eyes to the camera. I now serve Earth, not because they broke me, but because they freed me. The screen went dark. The galaxy shook again, not from impact, but from truth. In the oldest chamber on Earth, beneath layers of crust sealed for millennia, a door finally opened. It wasn't metal. It wasn't even matter as the galaxy understood it. It was memory, shaped like architecture, and behind it, the Origin director Keen stood in silence as 4 others, cloaked, faceless, bound to Earth's true history, surrounded a single figure rising from a chamber of light. He was tall, unnaturally so. His skin shimmered in hues not seen in known spectrums. His eyes had no color, just depth. He had no name, not one that could be spoken. To the Senate he had been legend. To Earth he had been asleep. Now he was awake. He stepped forward, and the air bent slightly with every move. Not just pressure. Gravity, respect. Keen bowed slightly. It's time. The figure didn't speak. Not aloud. But every person across Earth with even a trace of neural enhancement heard the same words in their minds. I was locked beneath Earth for breaking the first treaty, for refusing to kneel to the Galactic Order, for reminding them what humanity was. Now, I rise. The first human, the progenitor, the forbidden memory the Senate tried to erase from history, had returned, and he was not merciful. Far across the galaxy, in an abandoned mining world now repurposed into an escape colony, rogue senators met in secret. 28 of them. What remained of the leadership? They watched the latest intercepted footage of Earth's rise, the fleets, the speeches, the silence. They knew this wasn't about politics anymore. It was species survival. One senator, pale and shaking, leaned forward. "We need a new plan. Something desperate." Another spat. "There is no plan. Earth controls half our fleet now." "Half our AI." "No," whispered the oldest senator in the room, and a woman named Selra, Mayan, who had survived 3 galactic collapses and 2 planetary resets. "There's one option left." The room turned to her. She didn't blink. "Alpha Eden." Half the room gasped. The others swore. "No," someone said. "That's suicide." "It's genocide," someone else whispered. But Selra shook her head. "No, it's the only weapon Earth doesn't know still exists. Because it's not in space." She leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's inside Earth." Back aboard the Eclipse engine, Kane stood alone now, watching the stars, remembering the world he once served. He wasn't sure anymore if this was justice, but he knew it was necessary because Earth had waited, Earth had warned, and they didn't listen. Now, they would be remade, or they would be removed. The cold of deep space was nothing compared to the cold of truth. Not the kind the Senate had sold, carefully shaped, deliberately edited, and fed to the galaxy like medicine through a spoon. No, this was the truth that felt like ice cracking through a spine. The truth that melted illusions and shattered every comfortable lie they'd ever lived under, and now that truth had a name: the first human. His presence stretched beyond the physical. He didn't speak through words or gestures. He didn't threaten or demand. He simply existed, and that was enough to make senses go blind. Psychic races drop to their knees, and prime-level AIs spiral into recursive feedback loops trying to define him. Even now, he stood atop Earth's oldest vault, not in armor, not in a throne, but barefoot on the raw stone of a world that remembered him better than the stars did. Beside him stood Director Keen, hands clasped behind her back, watching the blackened skies above Earth flicker. As the last of the Senate's listening, probes were fried into static. "They're moving toward Alpha Eden," she said quietly. "The first human." Tilted his head slightly. "Desperation." Keen glanced up. "We assumed they decommissioned it." "They never would," he said. "Cowards don't throw away the blade they can't control. They just lock it in a different drawer." Keen frowned. "If they activate Eden Protocol, the entire sector could be glassed. They'll try to glass Earth. But," his voice didn't rise, "it didn't need to. They've forgotten Earth doesn't break. It adapts." Alpha Eden had been the Senate's final contingency, a last resort protocol so secret that only the oldest, most paranoid of its creators remembered where it was buried. It was never meant to be used, only threatened, buried deep within old Earth's crust. Long before the Senate believed humanity had reached space, Eden was a weapon disguised as a myth, a planetary-scale extinction failsafe, not designed by Earth, but implanted by the Senate during their first contact centuries ago, back when they feared humanity might evolve too fast, back when they feared Earth might remember what it once was, and now they were trying to reactivate it. But what the Senate never knew, what even Earth's first resistance leaders didn't fully understand, was that Eden wasn't dormant. It had evolved too. On the far edge of Earth's orbit, hidden just behind the curve of the moon's fractured remains, an illegal Senate vessel broke stealth. Its hull bore no insignias, no broadcasts, not even an engine signature. Inside, Selra Mayan, the last surviving founder of the Eden Project, stood before a chamber she hadn't seen in nearly 2 centuries. The capsule in front of her pulsed faintly. It looked like a heartbeat. "You're sure this is it?" asked General Lecht, a Sari mercenary turned desperate loyalist. Selra nodded slowly. "If Eden responds, we won't need fleets. Earth's surface will rewrite itself, uninhabitable. Even the first human can't survive total entropy flooding. And us? We'll die. But Earth dies with us. That's all that matters." Lecht hesitated, then pressed his hand against the activation panel. The pulse turned red. In the Eclipse engine, alarms flared for the first time since the campaign began. Kane rushed to the command deck. "Status!" A neural tech officer responded. panic barely masked under his controlled voice. Unregistered anomaly on Earth's lower mantle. Spike in dark entropy readings. Old signature. Doesn't match human tech. Keen turned slowly. No, she whispered. It's theirs. Kane's eyes widened. The Senate's. Worse, it's Eden. Kane had read the files. The old ones. The ones buried under 100 layers of clearance. Eden wasn't a bomb. It wasn't even technology in the way people understood it. It was a rewriter, a sentient entropy field. If unleashed, it would reset the molecular structure of any matter it touched. Cities would liquefy. Oceans would evaporate. Even AI cores would disintegrate into raw code and die screaming in silence. Eden didn't destroy planets. It erased reality. The first human descended into the Earth. Not through a tunnel. Not with ships. He walked. Each step took him deeper into the crust, through matter that rearranged itself, recognizing his presence. Metal turned to mist. Stone became memory. Time bent like gravity, until the very concept of down became meaningless. And at the heart of the world, beneath the bones of ancient cities, he found it Eden. It pulsed like a cancer, unnatural, foreign, burning red against the black-blue soil of Earth's soul, and in front of it, Selra Mayan, standing tall in her suit, unshaken. I knew you were real, she said, voice shaking anyway. You weren't a myth. You were buried with the others. With the rebellion. The first human said nothing. She stepped forward. I watched my people fall to your memory. I saw your fleets hijack our minds. Your ghosts infect our systems. I saw worlds pray to your silence. He blinked once. You're not a savior, she spat. You're a virus. A relic of a species that never knew how to die with dignity. He looked at her. Unblinking. You came to kill Earth, he said. I came to restore the galaxy. He raised one hand. Eden's pulse stopped. Selra's eyes widened. No, that's not possible. It's not yours. It was built by... I know who built it, he said softly. I remember when they buried it. I remember the fear in their eyes. I remember what they saw before they locked it away. He stepped closer. And now I remember what I was created for. With that, he placed his hand on the core. Eden flared, screamed. Then changed. The entropy reversed. Matter reassembled. Eden tried to fight, but it couldn't. It had been born in fear, and now stood before something older, a being created not from code or flesh, but from Earth's own broken timeline, a human who had lived too long, seen too far, and had become something the galaxy never wanted to exist again. Selra fell to her knees as the core melted into light. It wasn't supposed to end like this. The first human looked at her, almost with pity. It hasn't ended yet. Above, in orbit, the Eclipse engine vibrated, but not from attack, from transmission. Every ship under Earth's command received the same message. Not a threat, not a declaration, a memory. Thousands of years ago, before the Senate, before the rise of the alien empires, before AI, before colonization, Earth stood alone, and it was already powerful. They had reached the stars and come back. They had built weapons that could erase constellations, and then chose to bury them. They had loved, fought, broken, rebuilt, and fallen again. Humanity didn't become powerful because of what it invented. It became powerful because of what it survived. And the first human had been there for all of it. He hadn't. Led, he had watched. And now he would lead, and not to destroy, but to remind. In the last Senate stronghold, where the surviving senators gathered in darkness, the message came through, not a scream, not an image, a single sentence. You were given every chance to evolve. Then silence. Selra Mayan was dead. Eden was offline. And Earth still stood. The Senate was no longer a government. It was just a memory the galaxy was trying to forget. The campaign didn't continue. It ended, not with planetary bombing, not with executions or slavery. Earth didn't conquer. It simply walked in, one by one. Worlds stopped resisting. Not because they were afraid, because they finally understood. Earth wasn't rising. It had returned. The war that never officially began had already ended. There were no signing ceremonies, no peace treaties, no interstellar broadcast of raised flags or handshakes between generals. What happened after Eden fell wasn't surrender. It was something far deeper. Submission world, Afterworld turned their weapons off without being asked. The former vassal planets of the Galactic Senate, proud colonies built on the backs of forced labor, deception, and economic addiction, watched the sky and waited for Earth's ships to appear. And when they did, no shots were fired, no soldiers landed in armor. Instead, Earth sent only one thing: memory. They didn't arrive to invade. They arrived to remind. On Velthara, a frost world ruled for decades by the Sari mining guilds, Earth's arrival lasted 4 minutes. No orbital entry, no communications. Just a low-pitched hum that echoed through the crust of the planet for 72 hours. After it stopped, the Sari elite all resigned. Every worker had the same dream that night: a flash of a human child crying beneath a cracked dome, and a sentence spoken in 1,000 tongues. You don't remember what you did, but Earth does. On Chiron 5, a weapons manufacturing hub once used to arm fleets against Earth, a soft code signal entered their planetary network and revealed 27 hidden archives, audio logs, videos, AI correspondence, proving the Senate's orchestration of the 5th and 6th expedition vanishings had been planned. Not losses, sacrifices. The planet's leaders turned themselves into Earth without being prompted, and Earth didn't imprison them. It simply disconnected them, took away their tech. Their AI, their comfort. Live like we did was the only instruction. Admiral Kane stood alone on the bridge of the Eclipse engine, watching a peaceful system fall into line not through weapons, but awareness. Behind him, the crew moved like shadows, focused, silent, efficient. Every single one of them had come from somewhere else. Once loyalists of the Senate, now Earth's agents. You feel that? Director Keen's voice broke the stillness as she stepped beside him. He nodded slowly. It's happening faster than we predicted. Keen looked at the console display. 24 systems have opened to us in 3 days. Not out of fear. Out of realization. Kane crossed his arms. Hurts the guilt. The grief. They finally know who we were before they rewrote us. Keen leaned forward, whispering like it was a secret. They thought they were dealing with a planet. He turned to her. And? They were dealing with the mirror. And now they can't look away, Kane exhaled. How long until the final barrier falls? Soon. He didn't ask what it was. He already knew. The inner ring. The last untouched region of the galaxy. Unlike the colonies and client systems that fell apart the moment Earth revealed the truth, the inner ring had been built differently, isolated, guarded, suspicious of outsiders. It was where the purest Senate bloodlines lived, where they had bred, where ideology was inherited. Not chosen, they weren't afraid of Earth's fleets, they were afraid of truth infecting their youth. So they built psychic shields closed. Their skies shut off all external transmissions. It made them feel safe, but it also made them blind inside the opulent domes of Carol Prime. Chancellor Rin Vale paced through his private garden. Artificial weather, artificial gravity, artificial sunlight. Nothing on this planet was real except the paranoia. He wore a crimson robe stitched with symbols from the first charter, the old lies, where Earth was described as the wild seed, the unruly branch, and the threat of chaos. His advisors waited quietly. None of them looked him in the eye. Tell me again, Rin said coldly. What did they do to Eden? An aide cleared her throat. The records indicate Eden's core was not neutralized, sir, but reversed, redirected. Earth seems to have... He raised a hand. I don't care what it seems. Tell me what it means. Another aide, an older man who had once been a senator before the collapse, replied. It means Eden no longer obeys us. It obeys him. Silence. Rin's face twisted. The first human is a myth. A projection. A lie Earth feeds to make the weak submit. Then explain how our dreadnought fleet vanished in 2 minutes without fire. I don't need an explanation, he roared, the calm veneer finally cracking. He paused, took a deep breath. They will not reach us. They cannot, another voice cut in, soft, almost musical. But they already have. Rin froze. A woman stood at the edge of the garden. No one had seen her enter. She wore no armor, no weapons, just a thin black coat. Who are you? He whispered. I'm not important, she said, but Earth remembers you. Rin, and it's time you remembered it. He reached for the alarm panel. Too late. The sky above Carol Prime shattered like glass. not the atmosphere. Perception, every screen, every interface, every implant, flooded with memories that had been erased centuries ago, the bombings of Earth's rebellion, the caged children of the Third Dome Purge, the false trials, the executed human scientists, the silenced AI warnings. It all came back and it couldn't be turned off. Corel Prime was no longer blind, it was awake. Back aboard Earth's shadow station, Black Array 1, the first human walked slowly through the observation corridor, where a child waited beside the glass. He stopped beside her. She didn't speak, she didn't have to. He knelt beside her, his ancient form still, his eyes distant. She finally looked up. "They're crying now," he nodded. "They weren't crying before. Not when they were hurting us. Not when they lied." He looked through the glass, seeing beyond stars. They didn't know what it meant to cry. She leaned her head against his shoulder. "Are we going to make them feel it?" His voice was soft. Not cruel. Not angry. No. Why? "Because if we do that, we become what they were." She nodded slowly, thoughtfully. "Then what do we become?" He stood again. "What we were always meant to." Director Keen stood at the podium of Earth's first open council in over 600 years. It was not a press conference. There was no applause, only listening. Across hundreds of systems, through waves, implants, and neural nets, her voice spread. "We did not want this war. We did not choose it. But we answered it." She looked down at her hands. "They didn't shake. You were told Earth was wild, dangerous, primitive, but you feared us not because of our violence, but because of our memory. Because we remembered who we were before you rewrote our name." A pause. "Human, not a word, a statement. You will not be punished. You will not be enslaved. You will not be controlled. But you will never forget again, because Earth had given its final ultimatum, and now the galaxy understood. It had never been about Earth. It had been about truth." The stars weren't brighter now. They hadn't changed their color or shape. But something felt different. For the first time in over 6 centuries, the galaxy wasn't being watched by Earth. It was being seen by it. And that difference changed everything. The former colonies of the Senate now called themselves free systems. The word was ironic. Most of them hadn't tasted actual freedom in generations. What they'd called freedom before was just a cage with transparent walls, technology rations, cultural monitoring, civilization metrics. Now they were exposed to Earth's way of thinking, brutal honesty, heavy memory, and a refusal to bury the past just because it hurt. It overwhelmed many, but it liberated more. And in that strange silence that followed the collapse of the old, Senate Earth stood alone, not as a ruler, but as a standard. Some loved them for it. Others feared them even more. But no one could ignore them. In a small chamber deep inside Earth's converted capital, a city floating over what was once the ruins of old Paris, Admiral Kane met with Director Keen for what might have been the first moment of peace they'd shared since the beginning. There were no guards, no reports on the table, just a pot of black tea steeped and untouched. Kane leaned back in his chair. "We keep winning, and yet I don't feel like we're done." Keen gave a tired smile. "That's because we're not." He raised an eyebrow. "You see something coming?" She nodded once. "A ripple." "From where?" She hesitated, then whispered, "The Outlands." Kane stiffened. The Outlands were the unspoken edge of the known galaxy, a stretch of space the Senate had locked down long ago, officially marked as uninhabitable due to gravitational anomalies and cosmic decay. Unofficially, it was a graveyard. Entire expeditions had vanished there. Unmapped species were rumored to live in that darkness. Some said even the AIs refused to run simulations on it. "You're saying they're moving?" Kane asked. "No," Keen said. "I'm saying they've been watching." Meanwhile, on Narthex 7, a quiet industrial world left behind by the Senate after Earth's rise, a strange signal began to loop across the atmospheric relays. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't encrypted. It simply repeated, "Echo confirmed. Human pattern detected. Awaiting alignment." The locals ignored it at first. Then they noticed their machines were behaving oddly. Not shutting down, but correcting errors on their own. Engines self-repaired. Navigation systems redrew maps that hadn't been touched in decades. Then a single black drone, shaped like a wingless stingray, descended from the sky and hovered silently above the Capitol Tower. No weapons, no lights, but it left behind a device, a smooth, round sphere. On it, one word: return. Back on Earth, in the depth archives, a secure subterranean vault holding the oldest records salvaged from before the first collapse, the first human stood alone with his hand against the core wall. He wasn't accessing it like a computer. He was remembering through it. The data pulsed and reacted to him, light blooming like breath as ancient files sparked to life. He saw the Outlands, not as they were rumored, but as they once had been, not empty, not broken, abandoned. He whispered into the silence, "You were the first to run." Behind him, Keen entered quietly. "Is it them?" He didn't answer for a moment, then finally, "It's the ones we lost." Keen's expression didn't change, but something in her posture hardened. "You mean the ones we left?" He turned to her. "No, worse. The ones who chose to forget us. Long before Earth had been buried under Senate propaganda, long before the first expeditions were launched or erased, there had been other humans, pioneers, the first wave of deep space colonists who rejected both the Senate's rule and Earth's internal collapse. They fled during the Age of Ash, when Earth burned, governments failed, and the stars were still a dream. They took rogue tech, stolen AI fragments, and vanishing points no one could trace, and they disappeared. Earth had long assumed they were dead. The Senate claimed they never existed, but now they were signaling back. The first human stared into the memory light, his mind tracking thousands of micro-patterns. He wasn't seeing time like others did. For him, past and present coexisted. And what he saw now filled him with something far rarer than anger or power: regret. "They'll come back," he said quietly, "but not to help, not to heal." Keen watched him carefully. "Then why?" He turned to her, his voice calm. "To claim what we became." Elsewhere in the deep black silence of space beyond the known star lanes, something massive moved. It didn't hum like the Eclipse engine. It didn't leave behind heat or trace. But it lived. A ship. Or maybe something more than a ship. A remnant. Once human. Now something else. Inside its neural core, a woman sat suspended in a cocoon of white fluid, eyes open but unblinking. She spoke without moving her mouth. They rose. They remembered. They reclaimed. Another voice answered. "And now?" She smiled faintly. "Now we remind them what they left behind." On Earth's lunar outpost, Kane reviewed the decoded Outlands message. The phrase repeated in varying dialects of ancient human languages, dead dialects, and even pre-modern code. Return protocol. Initiated. Reclamation begins. Sovereign flesh must answer, he looked up. "They're claiming Earth." Keen nodded from across the table. "They believe we're their descendants, that we inherited their failure." Kane's jaw clenched. "They were cowards. They ran when it counted." Keen's voice was colder than usual. "And now they see us not as victors, but as thieves." Kane exhaled. "Then they're not coming to join us." "No," she said softly. "They're coming to judge us." That night, the sky above Earth darkened, not from storm or nightfall, but from a massive object entering the system without detection. It arrived without light, without heat, not even gravity distortion. It simply was. The stars around it dimmed, and from it a single message echoed, not across space, but in the minds of every being, with even a trace of human DNA. "We watched you burn and rise. We heard your silence and chose our own. But now you carry our name. And we want it back." Earth didn't respond, because Earth didn't explain itself anymore. In the control nexus beneath the Eclipse engine, Keen met with the first human one final time before deployment. He looked quieter, more still than usual. "You knew they'd return," she said. He nodded. "We always feared they would." And now, his gaze drifted toward the stars. "Now we find out if we're truly human, or just their echo." They came without noise, The stars didn't flicker. The space around Earth didn't distort. The old systems, meant to detect interstellar entries, the same ones that could once identify a cloaked cruiser, 2 solar systems away, showed nothing, and yet there they were, dozens of them. Ships, or what used to be ships. No metal, no heat signatures, no propulsion trails. They looked grown, not built. Colossal bodies made of darkened bone and synthetic skin, pulsing softly like sleeping titans, the lost ones. The Outlanders, human once but no longer. They had left Earth before the collapse, before the purges, the reprogramming, the great memory loss. Before the Senate rewrote what it meant to be a species. These were Earth's ancestors, and now they'd come. Back, not in peace, not in war, but in claim, in the Eclipse engine's upper command deck. Kane stared out at the dark horizon as the Outlander fleet arranged itself above Earth like a second moon. They didn't move aggressively. They didn't scan, they just hovered, waiting. Keen stood beside him, silent. "Are they waiting for us to fire?" Kane asked. Keen shook her head. "No, they're waiting for us to speak." He turned, frustrated. "What do they expect? Surrender? Apology? They want validation," she murmured. "To know that their abandonment of Earth wasn't failure, but wisdom." Kane's hands clenched at his sides. "They ran, and we survived." He looked at her. "So we talk?" Keen nodded. "But we don't beg. In the subterranean vault beneath the North Atlantic, Ursa, where the original Earth AI network had once been housed before it was fractured by Senate tech, a council formed not of leaders, not of soldiers, but of remnants, pieces of Earth's buried soul, old war AIs, biological thinkers, deep archivists, even recovered personalities from the 6th and 9th expeditions, now fully restructured, and at the center the first human. He wasn't sitting. He never did. He stood barefoot on the ancient stone floor, surrounded by the ones who now looked to him, not as a god, not as a leader, but as the one who remembered most clearly. "They're not here to destroy," he said. "Not yet. They're here to test." Keen's projection flared into view. "What kind of test?" The first human turned slightly. "The worst kind. The kind that makes you doubt everything you built. From the Outlander fleet, a single vessel detached, a long spindled structure, half organic, half memory, glided through space without force, without resistance, and landed directly on Earth. No resistance was attempted. Earth let it land because the truth was they had always known this day might come. The meeting took place on neutral ground, not a military base, not a council hall, but an open field where nothing had grown for 300 years, old Earth. Wasteland. The scars of the Senate's early experiments still ran through the soil, and both parties wanted to remember that the first human stood alone, no guards, no escort, just wind and ash and silence, and from the ship emerged one being, tall and almost human, but too perfect, skin like ivory glass, eyes with no whites, just shimmering clouds, a face engineered to be remembered. It didn't walk. It floated, as though the ground had no right to hold it. When it reached him, it stopped. "You wear our skin," the Outlander said. Its voice was human. Too human, as if someone had tried to replicate an emotion without ever feeling it. "I am your skin," the first human answered. "You claim our planet, our name. I protected it. I held it while it bled. I remembered it when you chose to forget." The Outlander's expression didn't change. "Memory is a burden. It's a duty. And yet we see you now, arms bloodied, galaxies kneeling. Do you think this was the point of humanity?" The first human stepped closer. "No, but we made sure humanity would still have a point." A pause. Then the Outlander said the words Earth had feared since this encounter began. "You are impure. You are contaminated by war, grief, retaliation. You didn't rise. You hardened." The first human's voice was calm. "We didn't have the luxury of purity." He gestured around them. "This is what you left behind. When the sky burned, you left. When the ocean screamed, you left. When we cried out for help, you turned your back." The Outlander's eye cloud swirled faintly. "We evolved." "No," the first human said, stepping forward. "You escaped." Back on the Eclipse engine, Kane watched the confrontation from the observation screen with narrowed eyes. He could feel it in his chest. This wasn't negotiation. This was judgment, and Earth was being measured. like a child who had colored outside the lines of a textbook they never had a chance to read. The Outlander finally spoke again. "We will take the seed." The wind stopped. Kane's heart dropped. Keen leaned forward. "What did they just say?" The AI beside her translated. "They're not here to rule Earth, they're here to harvest it." The first human's voice dropped. "The seed is not yours." The Outlander tilted its head. "You think you own it?" "I became it. You polluted it. I protected it." The Outlander reached out a hand and the ground cracked. Not from force but from recognition. Old Earth tech, buried beneath layers of rebuilt cities and repurposed crust, began to wake up. Systems Earth hadn't activated in centuries. Seeds planted, long ago by those very same Outlanders. Now answering their call. Earth wasn't just a planet. It was a repository. A womb. And the parents had returned to take back their child. But the child was no longer theirs. The first human stepped forward, both hands raised, and with a wordless signal, the Earth responded, not with weapons, not with shields, but with memory, a wave of raw human experience, pain, love, betrayal, defiance, birth, rebellion, surged through the land and into the sky. The Outlander staggered, not physically but internally, because the seed they wanted was no longer neutral. It had grown in trauma, in chatham, love in war, in truth, and it had chosen its caretaker. The ground split, revealing a glowing sphere, not a weapon, but a living archive of human memory. The Outlander reached for it. The first human stepped between. "You will not take this from us. It was never yours, no, but it is now." A pause. Then the Outlander said, "Then Earth will die." The sky ignited. Outlander ships shifted into an attack formation, their hulls peeling open like blooming flowers, each revealing inner cores of lightless energy. But Earth didn't activate its defenses. It didn't raise its shields because it didn't need to. The seed pulsed once, and the Earth itself responded. Not just its military, not just its AIs, but the planet. The crust shuddered. The oceans stilled. The skies turned to glass, refracting the stars in every direction. And then Earth spoke, not in language but in emotion, a universal cry that shattered the Outlanders. Composure. One of the Outlander ships burst, not from an external hit, from within. The others staggered, and in their mind net, a realization rippled like fear through their synthetic souls. One of the seed had evolved. It wasn't just Earth's inheritance, it was Earth's weapon, a weapon of identity, the kind the Outlanders had purged from themselves. Long ago, love, rage, pain, connection, and now reintroduced, it made them fracture one by one. In the field, the Outlander fell to its knees. "You contaminated us." "No," the first human said, gently. "You reminded us." The war ended not with surrender, not with victory, but with integration. The Outlanders didn't return to their dark space. They didn't get traced. They were brought home, not as overlords, not as saviors, but as long-lost family, and Earth, for the first time in eons, didn't just remember, it was remembered. The galaxy healed slowly, but it healed. The Senate was no more. The systems rebuilt themselves, not under one rule, but under one shared truth, that Earth had not been the threat. It had been the lesson, and the first human, he disappeared, not dead, just gone. Some say he walked into the memory core and never came out. Others say he became the seed, a part of the planet, now and forever. But no one questioned it, because he'd done what needed to be done. He didn't save Earth, he reminded it what it already was.